Hey, Drew.
Hello.
Hi, Jackie. So we have plenty to start. I'm gonna tee it up, okay? Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia LaFour. I'm the Director of Human Rights and Accessibility for the City of Worcester. We're here tonight for the regular monthly meeting of the Human Rights Commission. We are in person in Esther Howland Chamber in City Hall, but we also have some members joining us virtually. And we have our newest member, which fills the seats on the board now, Anahit Marudian, joining us virtually. I'm going to take a roll call of the members present and then yield to the chair. If you could just tell me you're present and how you're present versus in person or virtual. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.,
I'm present.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman,
Present.
Clerk Carrie Witherell,
Present.
members Robert Bellata, member Bernard Reese will not be joining us, he informed me earlier. Member Jacqueline Yang,
Here.
member Drew Schneblin,
Here.
member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis,
Here. Present.
and newest member Anahit Marudian.
Present virtually.
Thank you. I yield back to the chair, Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for being here on a hot July day. I quite appreciate it. And also, it's very nice in here, so that's always a plus. If anything, I'll probably put on my sweater in a little bit. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. I am Guillermo. I will be chairing tonight's meeting. As always, just a couple reminders that folks that want to do public comment, I will be opening that up shortly after we do our terms. And so if anyone in the public has anything to say about anything on the agenda, that would be the time to do that. But I am going to kick off with having our clerk talk about the terms, and I'll have our vice chair do the land acknowledgement. So let me start with the clerk.
Human Rights Commission mission. The Human Rights Commission was established to promote the city's human rights policy. It is the policy of the city to ensure that every individual shall have equal access to and benefit from all public services, to protect every individual in the enjoyment and exercise of civil rights, and to encourage and bring about mutual understanding and respect among all individuals of the city. It is the goal of the HRC to ensure that all city residents are treated fairly and equally by eliminating bigotry, discrimination, intolerance, and prejudice. Our work requires us to address institutional racism so that as a community we can achieve racial equity. Our work also requires us to make visible the unheard, unearned, and unquestioned privilege enjoyed by some members of our community to the detriment of others. We take time to make this acknowledgement, to educate so that a path can be cleared for healing. Key terms: institutional racism. The term institutional racism refers specifically to the ways in which institutional policies create different outcomes for different racial groups. The institutional policies may never mention any racial groups, but their effect is to create advantages for whites and oppression and disadvantage for people from groups classified as people of color. Racial equity. The term racial equity is the active state in which race does not determine one's livelihood or success. It is achieved through proactive work to address root causes of inequalities to improve outcomes for all individuals. That is, through the elimination or shifting of policies, practices, attitudes, and cultural messages that reinforce different outcomes by race or fail to eliminate them. In privilege. The term privilege describes the unearned social power in informal institutions of society to all members of a dominant group. For example, white privilege and male privilege. Privilege is usually invisible to those who have it because we are trained not to see it, but nevertheless it puts them at an advantage against those who do not have it.
Great, and I'll have our vice chair do our land acknowledgement.
We We acknowledge the traditional ancestral territory of the first peoples of Massachusetts, on which land we are convening tonight. The Nipmuc Nation is what is now Worcester County. While the Nipmuc history predates written history, records from the 1600s inform us that the original inhabitants of Worcester dwelled principally in 3 locations: Packachong, Tatasset or Tatnick, and Wigwam Hill, North Lake Ave. It is important to make this acknowledgement and to honor the ancestors that have come before us. Unfortunately, it is all too easy to live in this land without ever hearing the traditional names and history of the people who first resided and prospered in these lands and continue to reside and prosper.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's like passing of a baby. So if there are any members of the public, I don't know if there are any online, but if there are none in person, so we are going to keep moving along unless I am told otherwise. But I have not been told otherwise. So we'll continue. Great. And so next, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to give a little bit of a statement as to the direction of where I'd like to take our commission over the course of the year. And I'll leave some room for the vice chair to make any comments and then also open it up to all of you. But one of the things that I want to do is essentially describe the 4 pillars. Yes. Oh, good point. Yeah, good catch. Thank you, Commissioner. Let me backtrack. Can I get a motion to approve the June meeting minutes?
Make a motion to approve the June minutes.
Do we have them, Pat?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, she said, you did, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, all right. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Yang. Pat, roll call, please. Father Slinsky did.
We have a motion in front of us to approve the June meeting minutes as made by member John Slavinsky, seconded by Jacqueline Yang, Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.,
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman,
Yes.
Clerk Carrie Witherell,
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang,
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin,
Aye.
Member Jonathan Slavinskis,
Aye.
and Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for catching that. Okay, so now I'm going to move forward with this statement from the chair, just kind of laying out the future of the commission. So this is from my perspective and my hopes, and it was done in conjunction with the vice chair. So this is something that we believe, I think, would benefit us in terms of some guiding principles. So I have something official that I'll read, and then I'll let the vice chair chime in for anything, and then I'll open it up for discussion. So as chair of the Worcester Human Rights Commission, I remain committed to ensuring that our work remains rooted in the values of equity, dignity, and justice for all who call Worcester home. In the months ahead, the Commission will continue to deepen our engagement and oversight in several key areas that are vital to advancing human rights in our city. The first one is the Worcester Police Department. We will continue to advocate for transparency, accountability, and community-driven public safety. Through ongoing dialogue and examination of WPD's policies and practices, we aim to amplify resident concerns while promoting trust and fairness in policing. The second pillar is immigration and community safety. We recognize that many in our immigrant community live in a fear of enforcement action and systemic barriers. The Commission will explore recommendations to ensure that immigration-related activity within our city is approached with dignity, transparency, and trauma-informed lenses. The third pillar I have here is mental health. Mental health remains a human rights issue. We will work to identify gaps in access, support city efforts to reduce stigma, and advocate for culturally competent mental health services, particularly for underserved populations. And the fourth and final pillar is housing and homelessness. The housing crisis is impacting residents at every level. the Commission will prioritize housing and homelessness as a center human rights concern, working with stakeholders to spotlight solutions that are both just and sustainable, especially for those historically excluded from housing stability. In every area of our focus, we will uplift community voices and ensure that the city's approach is inclusive of those most affected. The Human Rights Commission is not just a platform for discussion, it is a vehicle for meaningful change. I look forward to continuing this work with each and every one of you and the partners that we have across our city. That's my official statement for what I would like for the future of the Human Rights Commission. I will open it up for the vice chair to make any comments or anything that I may have missed, and then I welcome a discussion from the rest of the commissioners.
Okay, the only things I wanted to highlight myself were that I'm very happy to see that we're going to get to the civil rights complaint form and start that process of using the human rights and the EOC to be able to accept complaints from the public as the areas designated that we're going to talk about tonight. I'm so glad that we got to that and that we're ready to go forward on that. I'm very happy to see that we're going to emphasize immigrants' situation in the coming year. There certainly is a lot of national and local trauma and attention that we have to address when it comes to immigrants' rights. And lastly, I just wanted to say that the city manager has told us that he will open up the transparency into the complaint process against individual police officers, and that he only needs to get that redacted before giving us those files that we can take a look at, either sworn to secrecy or an executive session. But we still have yet to see that, and we were very ecstatic when he announced that he was going to get us all to be able to participate in that process, but we're still waiting for the redacted versions of that. Thank you.
Great. So as I mentioned, I'd like to open it up for comments from commissioners. So those are the 4 pillars that Randy and I came up with. I'd love to kind of hear if how you feel about the 4 pillars, but also if there are any things that you think are missing there. I will say the 4 topics are not going to be the only things we talk about on this commission. Things will come, things will be added, but these are going to be our 4 guiding pillars. And so that's how I want you to all to see it. If there is some input on things that you all want, please, by all means, bring that forward. You can do it today, or you can do it in the future with Pat, and then she will bring in Randy and I to have a discussion about it. But please, as a reminder, the 4 topics were the Worcester Police Department, mental health, immigration and community safety, as well as homelessness. And I'm going to let Pat interject.
If I could just, through the chair, recognize that Commissioner Bellotta joined us shortly, so he is virtual.
Awesome.
And he has his hand up as well, so
Great. All
I'll
right.
yield back to you.
Commissioner Bellotta?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you for putting these pillars together. I think it absolutely encapsulates what the Human Rights Commission work has been, and also touches on issues that we're facing, locally and nationally. I do want to stress the importance of housing and homelessness. Worcester, just as much of the Commonwealth, is in the middle of a housing crisis. Homelessness, family homelessness, has been rising here in Worcester. The churn rate for Worcester public students that, going from changing schools, really shows that housing is stable. So, stable housing, neighborhoods, I think as a Human Rights Commission to guide policies, help inform the public about whether it's supportive housing or things can really impact our and impact the overall health of our community. Housing is one of the top historical determinants. What we can do to address, the urgency of this, and to work more on this.
Rob, if I could interrupt you, your audio is really bad. It's coming in and out. It's almost not, you can't really recognize what you're saying. I don't know if it's the earbuds or what, but it was very hard to make out what you said.
Okay, thank you. I'll try again. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. My apologies. Again, just wanted to say thank you to the chairman and vice chairman for putting these pillars together. Again, it really reflects our work and challenges that our community is facing. I do want to highlight the housing and homelessness. Family homelessness and homelessness has been on the rise here in Worcester. We have, college students sleeping in their cars, families, having to choose between putting food on the table and paying their rent. So I think there's excited to really work on driving housing policy for the city. I think there's more we could do for supportive housing, affordable housing, things like ADUs, and making sure that the city really focuses on healthy, safe housing as well. So I'm excited to work on housing with the commission, and really thankful that you have put this together. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Clerk?
Yeah, I'd also like to express my appreciation for these 4 areas. I know I'm new to the commission, but in my interview process, these are all areas that I identified as personal priorities. So I'm excited to see that you all are in line with that as well. And I just wanted to point out how all of these areas really interact and intersect with one another.
Right.
So, as we're focusing on one, we're naturally going to be impacting the others as well. So again, just want to express my appreciation for this focus.
Thank you. Father?
You just want to echo what everyone's saying, because it obviously is very important issues. Immigration is a big issue for me with my community at my parish, and living on Lincoln Street, we do see the unhoused rising right now, and the mental health with that as well. But also we see how some of these issues negatively impact other issues as well that we're trying to deal with, especially when it comes to disability. I was driving through the city the other day, and I noticed now, like on sidewalks, tents are on sidewalks, which affect the mobility issues for some individuals, and so how do we start to deal with these issues that have an effect on other issues as well? So I think it's great that we're able to narrow the focus in on these issues here, and I think these are all issues we can come together with in a positive way to say, okay, let's make Worcester good.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I do want to make a quick note before we continue. I see that Kevin is logged on. I am going to avoid him as much as possible because he is on vacation, and I'd like him to do that. But I do appreciate his eagerness to be online, but we're going to continue the meeting as if he was just observing.
I didn't expect him to make the meeting, but yes, he is on vacation.
Any other commission comments from any commissioner? Okay, hearing none. I, again, appreciate all of you, and we all have an array of expertise when it comes to each and every one of these topics. And so the way that I tend to lead is through lived experiences. And so, I welcome that any of you that may have any lived experiences you would like to share that would be instrumental for this type of work. Like, please don't hesitate to do that. I think that all of the stuff that we bring to the table is exactly what is needed when it comes to these conversations that we'll have every month. And so, again, thank you all for your continued commitment. And let's just keep stuff going. Alrighty. So I don't think we need to motion anything here.
No, but what I need to ask one of you to do is open those chamber doors over there, because they need to be open where the public can come in.
Oh,
I didn't realize they weren't open because
I didn't
that door's
realize they were
blocking me.
closed.
Thank you.
it must have popped closed. Good catch. Was that Kevin? It's open. Right?
No, I couldn't.
Oh, not yet. We're getting it. We're having some issues opening it. I think it's literally locked.
Yeah, there's a hand. Okay, got it. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Randy. Okay, so Pat, I am going to turn it over to you to introduce our new member. Not to put you on the spot, Commissioner, but would love an intro from you as well, if you're able to. I'll have Pat give us the rundown, and then I'll kind of give you the floor to introduce yourself with however you're comfortable doing so. So, Pat?
So we're welcoming our newest member, Annie Heaton-Rudian. She's a woman who's going to the university, I believe Clark University here in Worcester. I'm not sure what she's going to be studying, but she impressed both myself and the interview panel when we interviewed her about a month ago, I think. And she's very eager to jump in, and I'll let her tell you all something about herself, and then if you want to ask questions, I think that's fine. But I'll yield to you, Annie. Go ahead and give us a little story about yourself.
Thank you, Pat. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. So, hi, everyone. Thank you so much, for your, faith in me. I am an incoming freshman at Clark University. I'll be studying political science, philosophy, and genocide and human rights. So I just recently moved to United States. I moved to Worcester 4 years ago. I started going to high school here, and kind of advocacy work, all those things were always my passion growing up. So mostly that advocacy came from my heritage and cultural background. I'm Indian, and growing up in a lot of systematic injustices and social injustices and constant instability of my nation, that kind of made me aim for advocacy work and kind of standing up for myself and inequalities. So I thank you for your faith in me and for the opportunity to be present in these conversations.
Awesome, thank you. I'm very much looking forward to, no offense everyone, a young person on the commission. I'm a big fan of making sure that we have an array of voices, and that includes younger voices. And so I welcome it, and I'm grateful that you're on the commission. I'm sure you and I will touch base one-on-one as well to make sure that we get some face-to-face time, but I would encourage all commissioners to reach out. If I'm not mistaken, her email address is listed in the email that Pat sent out recently, so please feel free to send her an email directly, because reply all is not allowed. But you can email personally to an individual, so please don't hesitate to do that. And also, our two newest commissioners as well. If you haven't had the opportunity, I know that I still need to do one-on-ones with folks, and so if you haven't had the opportunity, I encourage you to reach out to your fellow commissioners as well. And does anyone have any questions for our new commissioner?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to say how grateful we are to have a university student on our commission and in our community. The universities in Worcester play a vital role. It's a great asset. And to see civic engagement by somebody at a young age, preparing for a life of public involvement, is wonderful for our commission, for our city, and we're very, very grateful to have it.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say welcome too, and it is really inspiring to see you jump in here with both feet and help the city. I mean, you have a wealth of unique perspectives, and it's going to be exciting to have you here.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And I just want to echo what everyone else said. I'm excited to work with you, excited to have you here. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Great. Awesome. So I'm going to share essentially a recap discussion on the WPD presentation from last month. I don't have anything specifically that I'm going to read off of here. If any, I'm more looking towards all of you to come in and just give me a little bit of a download. How did you feel? What do you think was left out? Do you think there's anything we need to send back and ask for some more clarification? This is kind of the opportunity for you all to have that conversation as a commission. So I am going to just turn it over to you all as commissioners. Like, is there anything that, any burning feelings or sensations from after that meeting?
I have a question. It's more an admission of my own ignorance, but the police department kept telling us they did a lot of work, and they were forwarding us a lot of things that we can read. Now, if that was forwarded to me and I missed it, it won't be the first time. But if there's some place that I have to go to find that, if somebody could let me know, that would be great.
The chief equity officer and myself, about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, told them that we need to have them compile that to something that we can turn into one document. So that's what the holdup is, and you getting all of those were all individual documents that they were showing in their computer system. So we've asked them to maybe do an Adobe PDF, like a combination thing, or however they're going to do it, just so that you can have your questions and have those things and look at them together.
Did we give them a time frame for the turnaround there, or?
I don't think we gave them a specific time frame, but I do think we thought in our comments that it was, I don't want to say urgent, but
Sure.
pressing. How's
Timely.
that?
Yeah, of course. And my follow-up question to you is, where will this live?
Good question. It will live, obviously, I mean, I think we talked about posting that,
Sure.
but all the posting things have changed, so I'm gonna have to find out if we can actually post that.
Right.
We've gone to some new portal with everything, with all the agendas are gonna change, the minutes are gonna change. So I'll have to find out if it can live like other things that you all have reviewed in prior years can, and let you know.
Yeah.
But I would think that you would want it to maybe live on the HRC
Page.
homepage.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Do you need a motion for that, or?
No, that's more of a mechanical thing, and
Okay.
who in IT is gonna help us do that kind of a thing.
Great.
But the main thing is we need to get the information first.
Yeah. Do you mind just providing a report back next month on
No,
where that's at?
I'm hoping that we have it
Sure.
sooner than then, so.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Father.
Obviously, it was a long meeting that last time there, and I know there was, correct me if I'm wrong, were there some questions that they didn't get, some of the last questions that they
So.
didn't receive? Will they have an opportunity to put those together and compile those for us as well? 'Cause I know
Yeah,
there's-
I don't know
think-
what happened there. I don't know if it got cut off when we sent the document over to them, but I'll look at that too. It refreshed my memory going through the minutes when our clerk so kindly added that into the end of the minutes. So that was on my own sort of radar to
Yeah.
follow up on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had actually the same question about the data, the documents, where they would be. Again, it was an incredible amount of data. It sounds like a lot of work to compile all of that. And it's my understanding from our meeting that there will be a new kind of like data collection system that they'll be implementing over the next, I think they said about year and a half to get that fully up and running. So I think just one lingering question for me, I did ask it that night, but that still kind of stands. Once this new system is up and running, will there be a plan for regular analysis of that data? And I also wonder if we can have a part in that in kind of determining what data would make sense to keep tabs on, whether it's quarterly, yearly, or whatever, and just make sure that that data is regularly analyzed and taking a look at it. Because it seems like a really good opportunity if they're implementing this new system, and you're not going to find things if you're not looking for them. So what can we
Right.
intentionally look for, and again, can we have a part in helping them to develop that?
I would also just add, Pat, is that whatever is posted is a searchable PDF. I think that's an accessibility thing as much as it is just something that we should be doing as a standard. Any of these documents that aren't searchable end up becoming just useless because there's so much information. And so I would make it a priority that when the document does come, if it's not searchable, that we quickly fix that or have the department fix that in any way that they submit it.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think I saw Commissioner Villada with his hand up. Am I right, Rob?
Yes, thank you. Just a question about, in previous years, it was typically the procedure that we would receive the documents from WPD like a week before reviewing with them. It didn't happen this year, and I was just curious as to why that there was a change in procedure. Just curious why that was the difference this year.
I don't have an answer for that, because I don't think I was here last year when you did that, but it was an enormous amount of information that they presented, so, and it was.
Correct.
Each one of the officers or upper, leadership members had a different piece of that, so that could be an answer as to why we didn't
Too
get it
many
ahead of
players.
time. But also, we need to get it in a way where it can be reviewed easily, so, we felt it was more important, the chief equity officer and myself, and we met with them a lot to get this thing sort of wrangled together. We thought it was more important that we had the information here to substantiate what was gonna be said, and then work on getting the document compiled after. I wasn't aware that it was given ahead of time, or that you.
Yeah, I would just like to flag maybe best practice to try and do that, next year, because I think it really would help commissioners be better informed about the conversations that we're having.
Yeah, I don't know if I can commit to that or not, Rob, frankly, I don't know. We'll have to see what things look like in the data world next year. I know they keep saying 12 to 18 months to get this new system. I hope it's gonna be
Sure.
sooner than that, but, again, it's not, I can't make a commitment to that now.
Okay. Through the chair, I would like to make a motion that we request that for next year.
Sure. There's a motion on the table. Is someone willing to second it?
Second.
Pat, can I ask for a roll call?
Second was, so we have a motion made by Commissioner Bellata to request the WPD provide the data before any meeting in which they present answers to the annual questions from the HRC, seconded by Member Father Jonathan Slavinskis. I'll take a roll call, please. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.,
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman,
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell,
Aye.
Member Robert Bellata,
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang,
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin,
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis,
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Great. Pat, so if you could just look into that and then report back on what that looks like, so that way we know how we're looking moving forward, that would be super helpful. Thank you.
Can I just add, pursuant to what Kerry said and Rob said, when we do get that information, I think that we should all have time to read it and then talk about it at a following meeting.
Yeah, so the hope is that Pat gets that hopefully within the month. And then if that's the case, we'll let everyone know on the commission that they've received it. And then hopefully in September, we'll have another section in the agenda where we'll discuss it. Just discussing like post information.
As soon as we get it, receive it in our office, I will distribute it to all of you so that you have plenty of time to look at it, and then we can tee it up for discussion whichever month works for everyone.
Yeah, like if it comes within the next week, we'll talk about it next month. But if it doesn't come until right before the next meeting, we'll punt it to September. But there was a lot of information that obviously was shared in the last meeting. I think it's very clear that the Worcester Police Department is doing a lot of work. And if anything, I think that they've been proactive with a lot of things. So, we should share credit where credit is due. And so I think ultimately the goal is for the commission to really make sure that that work is being done. And my hope is too that the data that they're so yearning for with this new system will be a lot easier to talk about and to collect and to disseminate given this new system. So I'm with you, Pat, with hopefully it won't take 12 to 16 months and it'll be sooner, fingers crossed.
I don't know what to expect in terms of review period, because I feel like it's such a timely thing when you do an annual review that maybe all of you will have to discuss doing it when this new system comes into play. Maybe quarterly makes more sense than having it be this huge undertaking one time a year. But it takes a lot of time for them to get to that, but I hope that this new system is gonna make their side easier and, less, scrounging around for data that's out in the universe somewhere, and it takes, you saw how many of them there were, they were all involved in it
Yeah.
in one way, shape, or another, so.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if we should be asking them if there's a way that they would divide it, right? Like, is there a way that makes sense for them to divvy it up so that way we know in 6 months we'll talk about policy, and in the next 6 months we'll talk about data, and we have 2 different meetings, and that could be a way where we break it up so that way it's not a very long 3.5 hour meeting on the information that they have to share. So, yes.
I was just going to say again, it's good to see the positive acknowledged positive at times. I think one of the greatest things we saw and heard was the diversity of the recruits in the new classes coming in. I had an opportunity to be at the graduation, and it's nice to look out and see the diversity which really reflects Worcester, and especially to see that diversity as they're driving up and down Lincoln Street, I think that also helps as well. So we just, I think, got to encourage those types of practices as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll reiterate this because I've said this over and over again. The chief being very blunt about the fact that DEI works for the Worcester Police Department, I think is something that I'm quite shocked no one has written about, because it is very important. The essential commitment from him of continuing those efforts, I think is very telling and very much what we want to hear from our police department. And so, I hope those efforts continue. I know the individual that is recruiting does great work, and he's worked very, very hard to get those numbers up, and is personally very proud of that. And so I commend him for all that work. Any other commissioners with perspectives or questions about the last meeting with the Worcester Police Department? Oh, I see Commissioner Bellata's hands up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to say, maybe it might be great to have them come in, or have them come in on different issues like mental health, like how crisis intervention with WPD, dovetails with mental health issues. Yeah. Maybe we could have, to break up that once a year meeting, we could have some of the WPD lieutenants come in to talk about what's going on with crisis intervention and mental health supports. There's a way to just break up the long agenda.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Bellata here. I think let's do this. The Chief Equity Officer and I will have a meeting with the chief soon. And so we'll talk about what breaking up these meetings could look like. So that way maybe there isn't just one, and there's one big one, but then there's, if it makes sense, certain lieutenants for, like the commissioner just said, like for a specific case. And I think it's totally appropriate to have, the commissioner who's in charge of mental health services to be a part of that conversation, the commissioner who's in charge of how we deal with our homelessness population to be at that meeting. I think that makes a lot of sense, Rob, so thank you for bringing that up. So I'll make note of that, and I'll bring it up when the Chief Equity Officer and I meet with the chief. Randy?
I just wanted to also say that I was very impressed with the police department not ducking any of our questions. Like, they really answered our questions. And some of those things were very ripe for contemporary public scrutiny right this second. And they didn't duck at all. They just answered questions. And what I've noticed since I've been on the commission 2 years is that we just keep getting better at asking better questions. And we're not there yet where we're anything like a civilian review board or police review board, but we're getting a little closer. So I think the more knowledge we get about policing, and the more honest and as honest as they are, along with the enhancements of the computer system, I think we're getting to a place where the public is really being well informed about the interplay between public scrutiny of the police and the police's point of view being clearly elucidated. And those two things happening arm in arm is a great thing for the city, and we're all heading in the right direction there.
Yeah, thank you. Any other commissioners before we move on? And we'll open it back up again after everyone just takes some time to read all the information that we get. I know that presentation was one thing, but once we have a lovely book of information to read, I'm sure we'll all kind of have some questions again, and maybe some new motions that come out of it. So I welcome that. And, again, I tell folks to not hesitate to reach out. If there's anything specific you'd like for me to talk to when it comes to the conversation with the chief of police, I would urge you to send an email to Pat or send an email to me, so that way we can help form that conversation. But thank you all for last month's conversation with the PD. I think it went very well. There was a ton of information that was downloaded onto us, and I think that we all handled it great. So thanks again. Great. So I'm going to move us on to our next topic here, which is ongoing discussion of external complaint process, specifically review of revised complaint form. That was a mouthful. Pat, can you kick us off there?
Sure, I had forwarded the revised complaint form that was approved by the law department. It does differ, not substantially, but there are a few key things that are different on it that the law department approved. Well, they didn't approve a few of the things that the prior commission voted to accept. Some key things are we cannot accept anonymous complaints. There will likely be a statute of limitations on this to be included as we generate the procedures and the policies for the program. We are going to allow the complaints to be filed by another as long as there's a legally recognized relationship, as in somebody being a guardian or a parent of a minor or some such thing that we can discern from on paper. And they also would not approve having the WPD category on the form. Now, these were actually all things that Kevin and I discussed at the meeting with everyone about this complaint form, but the commission voted to do the complaint form with those things, despite us suggesting that they likely wouldn't pass muster with the law department, and in fact, they did not. So the revised form is the one that is approved by the law department for us to use when we're ready to implement the complaint process. In addition to the complaint process and the form being somewhat finalized, I've already drafted the rules of procedure for this complaint process. They are with the chief equity officer for review. They're very long. It was a big project for me to undertake alone. And then that will have to go to the law department as well for review. Part of those part of the development of policies and procedures are going to require me to also develop some connected forms with that, like withdrawal forms and motion forms and things like that that are used by agencies such as MCAD or the EEOC. So I would say maybe there's 5 to 10 forms that I'm going to need to further develop to go along with the rules of procedure. But we do have a rough draft of them currently, and it's being reviewed by Kevin, and then it'll go to the law department for their review.
Thanks, Pat, and thanks for all that work that you've done. I want to, just for the public information, could you tell us one more time why the law department has rejected the police department being part of this complaint process?
I believe it was connected to the fact that we now have, we have several other avenues for complaints for the police, one being the bias excessive force hotline that was implemented after the DOJ report came out, and also it's not included in the human rights ordinance as well. I think that was the rationale they gave us. I will have to double check on that for you, but I believe I'm recalling that correctly.
Yeah, because it's a complicated matter whether it is included in the human rights ordinance, right? Because it definitely says, in some respect, that it's there. And it definitely says, in some respect, that it's limited. And in between those two things is quite the gray area. So, but I guess it is what it is, and we're going to take a vote either way on accepting this whole thing. Guillermo asked me to chair for a second, so I have my own things on the form I wanted to raise, just language things. But before I did, I want to see if anybody else has any questions or input.
Yeah, real quickly, Pat, can you extrapolate on the statute of limitations?
So the law department has also determined that we should use a statute of limitations in line with specifically the MCAD statute of limitations, and that will be something that will be announced in the rules of procedure as well. Although not in the ordinance, it just makes sense that we're not doing something that conflicts with a person's ability to file there if they file with us. So, and again, as we all understand this is mainly predominantly going to be referrals back to different agencies, but for the cases that fall in between very narrow cracks. So that is the MCAD's statute of limitations, 300 days, and that's what the law department has recommended for us to use in our process as well.
So a referral to MCAD seems an obvious avenue. But let's say that the complaint is about public accommodation, and for those folks who don't know what that means, that would be like a business that's public-facing, and somebody thought they were discriminated in the use of that business or entity. Or if it was something about housing or landlord-tenant. So if MCAD is not the obvious referral, Cambridge explained to us how they handle that, but they have staffing to do that. We also have staffing. It's not quite the same structure. So how would we handle those other matters if they come in as
Those are all
complaints?
matters that come under the jurisdiction of the MCAD. Public accommodations, housing, and landlord-tenant. There's a separate component of MCAD for just housing complaints.
Oh, really? Because, I mean, I know that there's housing court, and I know that MCAD has a lot of things having to do with discrimination in many areas, but I never heard of a referral to MCAD for landlord-tenant issues.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes?
Absolutely, especially if they're bias-based, absolutely.
So does that mean that we're basically going to be referring everything to MCAD?
It's going to mean that in large part, yes, because they're they have primary jurisdiction over these things. They even take collectively cases from EEOC and HUD. They delve into cases that are given to them by the federal agencies, and we know what's going on with the federal agencies right now. I don't know what survives out of the EEOC and HUD in Boston anymore. I really don't. Because people that we know collectively aren't there anymore because of this downsizing thing and everything with the federal government. But there are going to be some complaints that can't be resolved, that people might not want to go there, or the other issue we have to deal with, as you know, is like a race judicata thing. If they've already gone to MCAD, they're not going to be able to come to us, and vice versa. This is why the similar jurisdictional statute of limitations thing is very important.
Well, when City Manager Batista recommended the expansion of the DEI in the city bureaucracy and asked us as the Human Rights Commission to be involved with that, I got the clear indication, I hope I'm not naive, that he wanted the city itself, through its newly created bureaucracy, to step up and do more activist work in areas of discrimination itself. Because anyone who's ever referred anyone to MCAD or who's asked MCAD for their assistance knows that you have at least a 2-year wait before you're ever going to have your case heard. So I thought we were going to use our DEI commission structure within the city to actively pursue those things such as they do in Cambridge.
Well, understand one thing, Cambridge is different. As they told you, they do 80% of housing cases, and they get funded through HUD. This is totally different. We don't have a setup like that here. And the fact remains that we don't have the staff to take on all of these other issues. That my understanding is that this is primarily to refer cases to the proper channels, and then if there's something that falls between the cracks, there are some things. Not every public accommodation can go to MCAD case. Not every complaint of housing bias and discrimination, but there are many, if not most, things that will be referred to those agencies.
Okay, so myself, I would propose a motion to request that we send an inquiry to the city manager's office to ask if this form and the Executive Office of DEI and the Human Rights Commission is a pass-through or a referral service to other standing entities, mostly MCAD, if that's what the city manager had in mind, or if he wanted his newly created bureaucracy to be able to use its investigators and be more activist in handling the complaints in-house ourselves.
I'm going to second that.
I will take a roll call on that motion made by Randy regarding inquiring of the city manager what his vision was of the referral or in-house processing of these complaints, seconded by Guillermo. Roll call vote, please. Chair Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherall.
Aye.
excuse me, Member Robert Bellotta,
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang,
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin,
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis,
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Pat, with that, I'm gonna add a second motion here. I don't think it's redundant. I do think it's necessary. I would like an inquiry from the city manager, and I believe he'll pass this on to Kevin, but I still want the inquiry to go to the city manager for clarification on his vision for the equity office at large, given that now staffing is present. So I guess, we heard the vision pre-hires of different positions. I'd like to know what the vision is now, given that we now have a Human Rights Commission that is fully, has all seats filled, given that you are all actively hiring, but at this point, have hired a decent staff and team. Where are we in his vision, and has anything in his vision changed? And this is an at-large question for his equity office. So can I get a second for that?
Second.
So I'll take a roll call vote of the chair's motion regarding requesting clarification of the city manager's current vision of the Executive Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and has anything changed from the initial rollout of the proposed external complaint process. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer.
I just want to, so this isn't about the complaint process, it's about the entire office.
Okay.
Yeah, so my Randy's request was specific.
Okay.
Mine is general. I'd like to know at this point, where are we in his vision, and has his vision changed since the hiring of folks that we've had?
Very good.
Thank you.
Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Aye.
Member Robert Bellotta.
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang.
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Great.
I had a couple questions on the form itself.
Sorry, Randy,
Yes.
really quick. Because I just want to ask this to you, actually, because I'm a little, I'm not as well versed in some of this stuff. A question directly to you. Can you give me a quick Reader's Digest of, because I just had to look it up, MCAD, the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. And you said, it would take many years for something like this to go through. Can you just give me an understanding of that picture of what that agency is and why you feel like it would take so long? Because that's kind of concerning if this is what we've been building this for months and months and months, and now we're kind of learning that it's just going to go to one thing that will never resolve itself.
Yeah, so the Mass Commission Against Discrimination is charged with investigating and trying to get parties together to come to some sort of resolution of discrimination claims that have been made by people who feel they are discriminated against. If that sounds broad, it is, and that's why, and it's not as well funded as it would need to be. And that's why when somebody has a claim, let's say in the employment situation, an employee-employer, and you want to go to get some sort of justice, relief, examination of a claim to see if it's discriminatory, I'm going to be real direct and honest. The reason I got on this commission is because so many people would call me up, clients and people just using the phone to call the office, to ask, how can you get me an employment lawyer? Because I have this claim, and I don't think it was fair what happened to me. And every lawyer I know who did employment-based discrimination work stopped doing it or started charging a lot or worked for the institutional side because nobody could really make a living and handle the amount of claims that people were asking them to. So for most of my career, I ended up saying, just call MCAD because I can't find you a lawyer. So when Eric Batista said he wanted the city itself, and I had never heard of such a thing until I learned Cambridge also does it, I had never heard the city itself actually doing anti-discrimination work, and I knew how hard it was to get anybody, to get a lawyer, a private lawyer, to help with your anti-discrimination, I was overjoyed to join this commission in order to advance that program. Because every person I ever referred to MCAD, they always told me 2 years later, they did this good, they did this okay, I'm actually very pleased, but it took 2 years, or nothing really happened. It's just a big black hole as far as claims are concerned on a timing aspect. I'm not saying people don't get relief sometimes, because they do, but the amount of years it takes to get any relief is enormous. So that's why, yeah.
I guess my question then, following up with that, is your concern would be that this is, your words, a black hole that we're sort of throwing these complaints into, on top of a statute of limitations of only 300 days, and it could take almost double that to get something done. That the concern here is that many of these complaints might just run out of time and never see the light of day.
Well, I think the statute of limitations is more that you have to start the
have to
action
file.
more
You have
than
to
finish
Okay,
it.
you have to
Right.
file. It's not
Right.
that it's going to sit there.
Right.
So once it's filed, we're okay.
Right, but everything else you
You have to
said, Drew, is
file within
exactly
300
correct.
days.
It is a black
Okay.
hole in all those other respects.
It's still concerning that most of the complaints would go in that direction.
Yeah, I think that the silence is the answer. Anything else, Drew, or can I move on to Rob? Okay, great. Commissioner Bellata.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Feldman said, that we've been under the impression for quite some time, even going back to when Vic was working with us, that this whole reorganization was about hiring investigators to look into complaints, human rights complaints in the city, whether it was related to housing or just general discrimination. So it seems just a 180 from what we've been hearing over the past, frankly, 2 years.
Yeah,
So just, it would be great to learn more about what is the actual goal, or are we just going to be a referral
and
pipeline for
to piggyback off of Commissioner Bellata, it's the reason why I put forward the motion to understand the city manager's vision as it stands now. I do believe that at this point there's a little bit of confusion from us as a commission, that we probably know this stuff way more than any Worcester resident, and so if we're confused, we've got some work to do. So I think that the motion carrying unanimously from the commission just seeks for clarification from the city manager. My hope is that it really does come from his office. I have a feeling it's going to be assigned to the chief equity officer, which is not a problem. But my point is that it would be nice to hear it from the city manager's office as to where things stand. Any other commissioners? Anything around this topic?
Go on.
Yes, Father.
So just some of the, looking at the document itself, the type of employment there, I think, I almost would also like to see another underemployment, like, are you currently a Worcester employee? Only because I think it's good for us to see how all the departments are doing. If someone from within the city is working for the city, if there is an issue, because we don't always see or hear those issues that are going on, and it might be a comfortable avenue, perhaps.
So is that in terms of just data collection, or is it like?
I think it's both the end situation then.
Yeah, because I will, and Pat, you can clarify this, but like Worcester employees have their own way to file complaints, correct?
That is correct. We have an internal process, and we actually do get infrequent, but some already complaints from non-employees that are handled internally.
Okay. So I'm wondering, Father, if your thought here is maybe building on data collection, like,
Yeah.
if you're, and so I would, does that make sense, Pat?
Can you restate that?
So what the Father had originally talked about was that it would be interesting to have a section where folks can click off whether or not they were Worcester employees. And so originally he had thought it was a data collection and for other reasons, but given that Worcester employees have an avenue to file complaints, then I would say this is just purely data collection at that
Do you mean
point.
on the form?
Yes.
Well, the Worcester employees have a separate form
Okay. Okay.
that lives on our intranet.
Got it. So the whole point there is that a Worcester employee, whether they're a Worcester resident or not, wouldn't be filling this out anyway.
Correct, correct.
Thank you
This
for
is
that
This
clarification.
is simply external, meaning not a Worcester employee.
So a resident.
A
of the city.
resident, someone could say they came in here and they were mistreated by a business.
Sure.
A vendor, et cetera.
Okay. All right. Does that cover that for you, Father?
Yes, maybe adding then resident civil rights complaint form.
Yeah. Can we add? I mean,
I mean, I don't know if it's a say, but
I understand the redundancy can be a lot sometimes, but I do think that sometimes clarifying these things are important. But if a Worcester employee were to just come across this and they filled it out, wouldn't it be beneficial if it said, if you're a Worcester employee, please go to here?
Well, that's going to live on our website that's open to the public for viewing, right? The other form is on our intranet that's only available to us as employees. And it lives in a couple of different places. It lives on our intranet for our office, I believe, and then also under the HR department, there's access to it. And maybe other places too that I'm just not aware of, but it is in many places, and there is no shortage of people filling the form out for complaints, so.
Sure.
But the father's point, I think, is good about, he was suggesting, if I got it right, that the title could be Worcester Resident Civil Rights Complaint Form, right? Just to make it clearer that this is for Worcester residents to use. And then I had my own things on the form itself. The things I'm going to suggest become irrelevant if somebody in the office is helping somebody else fill out the form anyway, because things that might seem hyper legalistic that most people are not going to understand what we're talking about or what the form talks about will go away if somebody's walking you through the form. But what I mean by that is complainant's designated party's name. Now, if I got that right, what we really mean by that is the complainant's designated violating entity's name.
Goes back to your discussion in this commission about allowing another party to file on behalf of someone and how we were going to frame that on a complaint form.
Okay, so, in the rare instance, I think, where if the examples I understood correctly would be like a guardian filing for someone else or somebody like that, which is probably not going to be nearly as often as the party themselves filing for themselves, right? Then I'm more saying, if I got this complainant's designated party's name, okay, so that doesn't mean the party that you're complaining about.
The party you're complaining about is the respondent,
Okay, and the respondent.
which is also the same language used
Who discriminate
in all
against you. Okay.
anti-discrimination stuff.
Complainant's
Right.
designated party's name. Okay, so you're just adding party's name in case in the rare instance where it
It's
might
like
be a guardian or a
it's
third
like
party.
I have guardianship over you, for example, and I say, wow, Randy was mistreated by Carrie, and I go and file on behalf of you. I'm the designated party filing for you.
Interesting.
I could see how the guardianship, that would matter. I don't know, maybe a parent also?
Yeah,
But
it's more common at the commission too to take minor complaints like that.
Okay.
But unusual with other relationships, because don't forget too, if you actually engage in an investigation, it's all confidential, and technically you're supposed to be talking to the complaining party when you're conducting an investigation, not someone necessarily speaking or witnessing. It's got to be sort of personal your personal observations of being treated, mistreated, in violation of the law.
Unless you have a formal relationship of
Correct.
guardianship or some such thing. Okay, and then my last one was, it took me a while to understand what public accommodation meant, right? So I had to do a little research on that. So I don't know if public accommodation is the best way to put it, or something like non-discriminatory equal access to spaces intended for public use. I know that's very wordy,
again,
but-
I'm going to just say this. That's what you all approved on this form, public accommodation. That didn't get changed. And public accommodation, as you know, is a legal term of art for a very specific form of discrimination. I go into your business, you say, "Get out, Pat, I hate women."
Right.
You've treated me with bias in a public business that you can't do that in.
Yeah, fair enough. I just don't think layperson is going to understand what the term means, but someone will walk them through this form when they come in to make the complaint, so I guess.
Correct.
It doesn't matter too much.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Carrie?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about changing to Worcester resident complaint form, and if this form is just for Worcester residents or also non-residents that may be employed in Worcester, going to school in Worcester, using a business in Worcester. So if this is also to be used by non-residents who are complaining about being discriminated by an entity in Worcester they are using, we wouldn't want to change that name.
It is for Worcester residents primarily. Where we would find some sort of shades of gray in that are people conducting business here who may be alleging they were treated with bias, but don't reside here, but their business lives here, or, again, a similar situation with a vendor. This kind of goes in line, I believe, with, the human rights ordinance talks a lot about equity and fairness and how we procure things, this kind of thing. But it's also public accommodation, to be quite honest, is a minuscule amount of the complaints of discrimination at any agency that I know of. Even when I worked for MCAD, it was minute the amount of complaints we got that were pure public accommodation complaints.
But it's a good point. In other words, if somebody lives not in the city lines, but feels they're discriminated against in housing or by an employer, if I remember right, I think Cambridge told us you had to be a resident of Cambridge, right? So are we limiting that? Is there any gray area, or is there no gray area?
I don't see there being much gray area in this, because this is, quite frankly, this is to go hand in hand with the internal complaint process that we already have for Worcester employees. It's basically to give our Worcester residents a sort of mirror-like process for alleging complaints that they're aware of. I mean, we do, as I said to you, already get complaints from Worcester residents that are not Worcester employees, but it is not a substantial amount.
So I have maybe an example just for clarification so I can understand. So if there were a minor child attending the Worcester Public Schools, Worcester residents, they and their parents could potentially use this form if they felt as though there was discrimination happening at school.
I think there might be an issue with the public schools because they have a separate process for that, but I would have to check on that because we haven't really discussed that even in the office about the implication as to Worcester Public Schools. Public school complaints are not, you cannot file them at MCAD. That's even more limited than public accommodation when it deals with education. We do have an education category on here, but I don't know that we've thought it out, what would the limits be on that?
Okay. Okay, so maybe if I just change my example then, because that one sounds a little bit more complicated.
I'm going to make a note to myself to follow up on the education and get back to you on it more specifically, okay?
Yeah, awesome, thank you. So if we were to say for employment, let's say there's a business in Worcester, Worcester resident feels as though they experience employment discrimination, that person could file using this form.
Correct.
Maybe their coworker who lives out of the city would not be able to file with us. Okay, thank you.
Pat, can you remind me, where will this form live?
That form will live, I would imagine, on our website.
The Human Rights Commission
Yes.
specific one?
Yes.
Okay.
And like a lot of the forms, we have them in multiple places
Right, but
for
this would
access to
put it in
people.
one
Right.
place. Got it. Okay. So I actually would like to make a motion. I would like the city manager to please propose how he plans on rolling this out, and including the communications piece of this. I'm specifically thinking about social media awareness. How is this going to be posted in the senior centers? I'd like a plan on the rollout of this. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
That was Father Slavinskis.
So we have a motion by the chair regarding answering an answer from the city manager or a request for a proposal on how The external complaint process will be rolled out to the community when we're ready to do such and the program is fully developed and ready to be implemented. Seconded by Father John. I'll take a roll call vote. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Aye.
Member Robert Bellata.
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang.
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners before we move on to the next topic?
Yes, through the chair. Pat, you mentioned that there's a bias excessive force hotline. Can you talk more about that?
Well, we have a bias a hotline that we operate in out of our office that evolved after the DOJ reporting came out. And it's basically, due to lack of a better word, manned by the 2 investigators and myself in the office, where we rotate, we have a phone designated for only those calls, and we rotate carrying that phone.
Okay, so it's not like a 24-hour hotline or anything, you just check in voicemails?
It's not a 24-hour hotline, it's basically during business hours. And
Okay.
we don't take it home with us, the phone is always in our office. So there's no, if there's someone that is not gonna be there, we make arrangements for someone who's in the office to take it, et cetera.
Thank you.
And since that was rolled out a couple months ago, what has been the public access? How has it been going as far as people using it for complaints?
At first, it was a lot, but it has slowed down quite a bit since then. When the report first came out and it was announced that this was available to people, we literally were bombarded with calls, and then it has leveled off substantially. And I don't have numbers to give you because we haven't developed that yet to give out to anyone, but I'm sort of talking out of school a little bit here at a public meeting, but we haven't developed how are we gonna disseminate this information yet.
And beyond dissemination, but action on the complaints, what happens after the person makes the complaints? I'm sure that in your office, you evaluate the credibility of the complaint, the possibilities of taking action and getting recognition and change from that complaint. But beyond that, like, what steps actually happen with those complaints
I don't want to
once
really,
they're valid?
I don't want to go into that because we actually haven't developed what we're going to present yet about that, but we do have a plan in place. We follow it procedure fairly rigidly. Vic created the procedures for this, and the 3 of us have worked on it. The other investigator, Joe, Vic, and myself have worked. All 3 of us worked together at MCAD. I actually oversaw investigations for my team at MCAD. They were both on my team, so we're all very well versed in investigations, and we sort of ran with it. That's all I can say at this point.
Okay. And would you-
But yes, we do assess everything that comes in. We track everything that comes in. We discuss collectively everything that comes in, and we will have information to supply to the commission, I would say, in the future about
any
that.
time frame on that?
I don't know. It all depends on if we get put off on other things. What's happening now is we're, working on other policies. I've been really immersed in this policy and these procedures. So, we haven't developed exactly what it is, what that would look like to present to the public. Because it's we hold it very close to ourselves, this investigative thing, because it is essentially people complaining about the police. So, it's very delicate complaints.
And parenthetically, when city employees use their normal employee complaint procedures, are all city employees represented as well by unions, or are some not represented?
If they're
by
collective bargain, yes, their union rep is invited with them for interviews.
Are all the city employees collective bargaining eligible, or not all?
No, not all.
Oh, okay. Well, around what percentage do you have?
I don't know what the percentage is, Randy. I have no idea. But like the big departments like DPW, inspectional services, the people who everyone recognizes out on the street as being a city employee are predominantly represented by collective bargaining and union work.
Through the chair, I just have a question. Has any of these, since we hired the investigator, like have any of these complaints been investigated by the city, or are they just going through to MCAD?
What complaints are you referring to?
Just any, like the civil rights complaints that the city establishes hotline for. I'm just trying to have better understanding of whether or not the complaints are being investigated, or are they just being passed on to MCAD?
Currently, we pass on referrals to MCAD if we get a call from someone about something that is, we know we can put there and it'll be properly placed there, but there's also investigations ongoing as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone. Lively conversation. That's what we do. All right. I am going to shift gears. The next topic we have to discuss is the HRC request to conduct remote community meetings over 3 months. First topic will likely be immigration and immigrant rights. I'll speak to this a little bit, and then I'll have the vice chair talk about it. This was kind of our idea. But one of the things that I really think would benefit us as a commission is to have kind of like town halls where they're not to replace our meetings, but they're in addition to. So I do recognize that it's, it's more of a commitment, obviously, from all of you, but they don't need quorum because there's no voting. So it's kind of information sessions for the topics that we'd like to discuss. And the first one specifically is around immigration. And I'll let Randy kind of speak to that. But the point being is so I'm opening it up for us to talk about what could the other two topics be about. Again, this is like a town hall setting, most likely hybrid, and we're going to work out the details of that because we're going to check on like where can we do it? What does it look like in terms of cable services? I think the immigration one specifically, we were thinking that it might be more virtual than in person, but again, I'll let Randy speak to that. But immigration is 1 out of 3 potential topics for the rest of the year. So I'd like folks to think about what other town hall style discussions would be appropriate. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to the vice chair to discuss kind of his thoughts here.
Well, immigration is a vital topic right now. As Father Slavinskis mentioned at his church, for churches and other members all over the state, all over the city, immigrants and people of color combined are probably 40% of the residents of the city of Worcester at this point. The national agenda concerning immigrants is one that makes very many immigrants completely fearful of living their life ordinarily. So we thought that it was vital to be able to advise immigrants as a matter of their civil and human rights, what rights they have and what protections and possibilities they can engage. We did that by, I think we were on record of having an incredibly great immigration lawyer who now works for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Susan Church, a longtime member of the ACLU, the Lawyers Guild, a practicing immigration lawyer, a person who's done federal immigration, know your rights. We wouldn't find a better lawyer to speak to us about immigration. So she will be coming to speak with us at our next monthly meeting that everybody could benefit tremendously from listening to her basically know your rights presentation.
Randy, not to interrupt you, but it'll likely be virtual presentation, yes.
Right.
That's how we all interacted with her when we had the presentation from her as well.
Wonderful. So that's one thing that we're going to do. Another thing that we'd like to do, as Guillermo just mentioned, is to try to do something like the Human Rights Commission did when it investigated body cams for the police, where you are more public-facing, not internal-facing, and try to be able to do that same kind of advising for people in the community in general who would welcome such an opportunity. That often happens at churches. It also often happens in lawyers' offices. It happens in social group, ethnic group organizations. And there's a great opportunity for the Human Rights Commission to participate in those Know Your Rights talks. Now, the obvious issue is, how do we get the word out to the public that this is available? Now, I've already seen, when it came to certain communities, that when their organization tried to have a big meeting in person, that everyone said we're too afraid to show up, and they wouldn't come because they were just afraid that it would be used for enforcement by the federal authorities. So probably doing this on Zoom is the best way to do it, but there is then the issue of, how do we notify people that this is available for them to participate in? And once we cross that barrier and try to figure out how we get the word out, I think it would be essential to do the presentations in Spanish and in Portuguese, and not just in English, so that people could really learn in the language that they are most comfortable in, of what they can do to protect themselves, what rights they have, what responsibilities they have in this current political environment. So the challenge, I think, is mostly, if we do this by Zoom, which seems it's probably the best way, is how do we notify people that we're doing it, that we get a broad spectrum of people who learn that this information is going to be available in this public-facing way.
If I may, with that there, the Zoom mentality, I don't know how helpful that would be, in a sense. I do think having a grassroots approach is probably one of the best approaches. A lot of those within the community that I work with, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, and not just in a virtual way there. I know within our own community, particularly, I understand that if you haven't know your rights, people are very fearful. Oh, they'll end up there now. ICE is going to be at the door. But the beauty is, we see these individuals week after week after week at our services. And a lot of our services afterwards, we go downstairs and we have a coffee hour, whatnot there. We'll congregate together. And I think taking that grassroots approach of just quietly being there, not publicizing it, being able to talk to perhaps faith leaders of other communities as well, to say, hey, would you be okay if we come to a service? And speak after a service to those who are congregating, because then they will send the information out to one another. They're great they love their WhatsApp, I found out there, and I'm still trying to figure out how to, use WhatsApp there, but they send information out, and they'll let people know that this is going to take place. And so I think that's a great avenue to be able, and a resource to say, okay, if we know there's going to be a great number of people at this moment here, whether it's 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, it's a good number of people, then they'll get the information out. And I think that's most helpful, that grassroots approach there.
Just speaking to that, I think Father Jonathan has a point, but I think one of the things that I want us to also remember is, you're creating the safe space. Mm-hmm. Not everyone is. And so I think that that's where the hybrid mentality is important. Mm-hmm. I agree, right? Like, I quite like being in person. I think that it is helpful, but I also think that the hybrid extension, because that's the way we should look at it, allows for certain, for certain accommodations, right? It might not just be for fear, right? It might truly just be like, I don't have the time to get somewhere and also cook dinner for the rest of the family, right? And so I think that doing a yes and approach with this is important. So I appreciate your thoughts on that, but I think that the hybrid mentality, and Pat will get some clarification in terms of cable services and what that could look like, I think would be most beneficial for all of these.
I didn't get great feedback from them about this, because logistically very difficult. Sure. So I'm still pressing.
Great.
Very difficult to produce over public access or city access.
Logistically very hard to do it with cable services, and we don't want to have it here. That was my understanding. We wanted to have it someplace else.
Right, potentially the library or potentially like another community partner, whether it be the senior center or, you know, a local parish that wants to host us, right? Like I think that all of those can be options in the same way that the elections commissions partners with, you know, different entities throughout the city. I think that that's kind of our mindset here.
And then
it shouldn't be a heavy lift.
Can you
it's
refresh
three-
my memory? Did you determine that you wanted to have these recorded?
I don't think so. I think it was
Okay.
more so to allow folks to be able to be there, whether
Okay.
it was in person or virtual. I think the first hurdle is to get the agreement, right? Of like, we need 3 hybrid meeting styles. And then the second hurdle is how do we disseminate this information into the community? I think part of the problem has been is that the communications department is quite limited into how they're doing things. And I know this from personal experience as a organizer for the citywide planning project, but also like just how can we as a commission request that the city posts something on our behalf?
And we're limited to that as well.
Right.
Like, everything has to go through them when we post.
Yeah.
It has to be in the style of the city. The city
Correct.
has a style guide. We're
Yeah, so
actually-
you know, this conversation isn't the final version of this conversation. I think if anything, it's allowing all of us to kind of give some input on what we're looking for. And I think right now what I know is that like it's 3 hybrid meetings is what we're looking for. I'm looking for a communications plan on how we get it in front of folks. I know one topic is immigration. I'd love to hear suggestions for another 2 topics that are possible, thinking about the pillars that we put forward or thinking just about what we could do as a Human Rights Commission. I would love to kind of hear some of that. I'm seeing a hand up.
I had an idea in terms of accessibility portion of the sessions. So previously when I used to be a Worcester Public School student, we had in terms of, the situation with the immigration and stuff, the schools kind of collaborated and created, with the same kind of mindset, kind of cards where you knew your rights, constitutional rights, anything that you needed to know at the moment. So if you can explain in terms of collaboration with Worcester Public Schools, I think if we wanted to get the information out there, Worcester Public Schools weekly, monthly newsletters to students and parents, so that put even through them or Parent Square is a website they use to communicate with parents. And I think the concept of having the sessions being Spanish, Portuguese, or other languages that are, easier for parents or to access it, that would also.
So I'm thinking that's a great idea. Do you want to go, Pat?
Yeah.
Good.
There actually are cards available, I believe, through Susan Church for Know Your Rights. I think they have cards available as well that could be handed out.
Yeah, so I think that's a great idea. If there's some way that we could interface with the Worcester Public Schools in a way that we could make that presentation. But I actually like Father Jonathan's idea better than a Zoom idea. Us private lawyers, we do this all the time, and when we do it, there's nothing like going to a church, quite frankly, that they already have established trust. And the communication that this will go on is like on WhatsApp or on something that's very private, and that people feel more secure, taken care of, a trusting relationship. So it might be that through the Worcester Public Schools we could do the interfacing, or it might be that we don't do immigration, we do something else on this great idea of doing public interfacing. But on immigration itself, I think the father is correct, that if we work with groups that already have established trusting relationships with immigrants, we come not as like a private lawyer or the legal services of Central Massachusetts or Accentria, who are some of the people who all do this, but we come as the Human Rights Commission with staffed by people who will also have expertise. I think that that's a wonderful way to let people know that the The Human Rights Commission exists and is here to help you, and we will enter into a trusting relationship with you that will help get the word out in a way that actually truly helps you.
And I'd say this too, I was talking with Congressman McGovern, and I know we're talking about putting together Know Your Rights for faith-based leaders, you know, and inviting them all to come. I was talking with an immigration lawyer, and she says, Father, what are you going to do when they come into your church? Who's going to be at the doors? Who are you going to call? And I says, I never really thought about that, you know. And so I think Know Your Rights, and especially for those in the faith-based leadership roles, extremely important. And so once we get that all put together, I think it also would be great to have members of the Human Rights Commission there as well, to as an invitation type thing, to say, hey, we'd be willing to come to your faith-based organization to talk. And it builds that level of trust as well, because I think we do need to know what our rights are as clergy individuals when they start to come knocking on the doors, because I think it is going to happen.
And I think as I'm listening to everybody speak, again, I really like this idea a lot. One thing I'm thinking of is if it would be possible maybe to do the 3 meetings all about the same topic with immigration, to allow a few different things to happen. Perhaps one is a Zoom, perhaps one is a small in-person, as you were talking about, perhaps one is for people working with immigrants, as you're saying, like what are the rights for you, right? Or how can you as a person working with people help out? So just an idea, if we have all these different ideas and figuring out how to build it into one, maybe we start just with one topic over 3 months and see how it goes before moving on to another one.
That's a thought. I see Rob's hand, and then I see Drew's hand. Rob?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think it would be great to have something that was just mentioned about, like, maybe training for allies on how to know their rights and how to assist people. But I think I just want to stress, I think it would be important to have any Know Your Rights meetings be hybrid, acknowledging that many immigrants are very scared to be out in public, especially gathering
Right.
at events that are about immigration. I know over the summer there was the Haitian flag raise, and a lot of immigrants from that community, people that from the community did not go. I mean, the ICE office is right downtown, and people in our community are aware of this. So I think we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that we have hybrid options for people.
Yeah,
Commissioner Drew?
Commissioner Drew, that's me. I do want to echo Rob. Man, speaking of echo, this is quite loud. Is there a way we can deal with this, Pat? It's every time we talk on Zoom, it's very, very hard.
Turn off your mic, Randy.
Anyway, I want to just agree with Rob about hybrid meetings here, not just because of the fear that a lot of people are feeling, but also accessibility issues. A lot of people don't have cars or don't have the time to get to these kind of meetings. I think it's very smart to do a lot of these things in person. It is effective, but a lot of people don't have that option. So I think we need to be cognizant that a lot of the people that need this information are people who might not be able to be in person.
Thank you, Drew. I'm sorry for the feedback. I guess I didn't know that you guys were getting a lot of feedback there. I'll try and, if we could have the tech folks try and fix that, that would be great. But we'll mute our mics when we're not speaking to hopefully help with that. So I'm sorry again about that. Anything else? So we'll talk in leadership with Kevin and Pat a little bit more, fine tune some more stuff, and then circulate it and go from there. So there wasn't an outcome that I was expecting tonight. It was more planting the seed, and we'll build off of that. So again, as you're thinking about this stuff as time goes on, please don't hesitate to reach out. Pat, did you want to add something? Okay, great. All right, I'm going to move us along. I I'd like to open up a discussion around the cultural flag policy / program. A quick refresher for some folks. Our flag policy had not the policy had not been put into place in the way that it was written for quite some time. And so there was a lot of questions as to, well, this is how it used to be. And then last summer we learned that what was being enforced was the flag policy we had. It just that we weren't enforcing it. And so the question that has come out of it is like, we've had this policy kind of fully into gear for a year. What are the reflections? Do we believe it's still doing what it's meant to do? I still have some concerns over the way it's currently written. I know there's legal stuff around it in terms of like the way the Supreme Court kind of ruled on this. And so I'm going to let Pat talk a little bit about this before I open it up for discussion with the rest of the commissioners. But if you all recall, last year there was confusion as to why the Juneteenth flag was taken down before Juneteenth, and it was because what was being practiced wasn't what was actually the policy. And so when the policy was really kicked into gear, there was a communication gap that existed. And so, a lot of stuff, and the time has passed. And so at this point, I'd like for us as a commission to use our lens and to discuss whether or not we need to make any recommendations or anything like that. So Pat?
So a quick rundown on what essentially the Supreme Court ruled against the city of Boston and their flag program because they unconstitutionally restricted the flying of a flag, which resulted in a decision I sent to everyone. It's the second or third time I've sent it to everybody on the commission. So it's very lengthy. It's very boring. If you read it, don't read the dissents, just read the concurring opinion. And what it breaks the law down to is this. A city or a municipality needs to designate their flagpole, if they have one like we do, have an extra flagpole that we have typically used for cultural celebrations. It needs to either be designated government speech or public free speech. And so, or you don't have one. Those are the three options. No more flag raisings. And so using Boston sort of as an example, Boston has determined that we are going to declare our flagpole government speech, and they have a list of, sort of a pre-list of holidays that are observed somewhat automatically or mechanically for certain flag raisings, and then by proclamation request, other flag raisings made by different other communities that aren't on that standardized list. I actually didn't really look to see what the list included, because when you really start to look at a lot of holidays, there's a lot of holidays when you start really poking this a little bit. So we had determined, this commission had determined and voted last year to support the city in developing a government speech policy for the flagpole. Our policy right now is pretty essentially that, except for we don't have predetermined holidays. We have it whereby anyone can make a flag request, and we allow this to happen and allow flag raising as long as they don't violate our human rights ordinance. That is the current policy. And flags fly one day every 12 months. That's the policy.
One business day.
One business day, correct.
Right.
What happens is that on Friday, let's just say your cultural flag is your request to have it on a Friday. If no one requests Saturday or Sunday, which there's an expense attributed to that, between $200 and $300, then the flag, as a matter of mechanics of city employment, stays up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because there are no employees here on the weekend to take the flag down. The only thing that would disrupt that is if we had a community group who wanted to have a celebration and paid to have the flag, their flag raised on a Saturday or Sunday. It would displace the flag that went up on Friday. But we also explain this to people when they make flag raising requests, which is all done online now. The things come to me in a tickler. I get an email immediately when someone files one. I've never said no to someone flying the flag that they requested. I think as long as we have the support of everyone, where we've run into issues is where people have fallen into the political sort of spider web of these types of requests. That's when we've had huge issues with flag raisings. But if they just follow the program, we really haven't had any problems.
So speaking about that, all of us who follow the news in Worcester know that the Juneteenth people went to the YWCA this year instead of coming to the city of Worcester to raise its flag. For the public to understand, Guillermo started fleshing this out. Pat, could you flesh it out more? What happened last year that caused the Juneteenth festival to protest and not come back to the city and instead go to the Y? How did that whole thing transpire?
Well, so I can comment on that as to this year, because I was in the meetings with Kevin when we met with the community groups who requested that their flag be raised on the Juneteenth holiday, which I believe was a Thursday this year, and they wanted to have their flag up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come down Monday. And, you know, we made a couple of proposals to them regarding alternate Juneteenth flags because, you know, I'd done a little bit of research before we met with them. I know there's several versions of the flag. This is one way where we've advocated for people to have a similar flag for a similar cultural group up, where there's more than one version of a flag. That's one way we've sort of cut around the policy. But they did not like that idea, and so we asked for some time to sort of flush out what we could do. And in the interim, they rescinded their request for any flag raising and moved on to the other venue.
So my thing is I want to acknowledge the fact that the frustration that the organizers faced, I think, is valid, right? And I think that that's why we're having this conversation, because if the way that our city functions and the cultural programs function, right? Like the city is not the driver of culture in here, right? Like we have organizations and entities and social groups that are doing tremendous work on the ground. And I mean, Juneteenth is one example. Pride is another. Pride nationally is recognized in the month of June. In the city of Worcester, it's recognized in the first 2 weeks of September. And so technically, as the flag policy stands, if the flag flies in June, it can't fly in September. And the loophole that Pat had just introduced, for example, is let's say the pride flag flies in June, then the progressive pride flag could fly in September, right? Like that's that loophole, is that there's a second version of that flag that the community will embrace. I think the reason why we're having the conversation is that as the policy is written, that's where the conflict comes in. That's where organizers clash and where there are genuine feelings for it, right? And so I think that the policy is currently written in a way that's supposed to be equitable, but I think in practice, we've noticed that it might not be doing that. And so what are the limitations that we have here, right? Because let's say, if the city would have signed off on Juneteenth having that flag, which would have been for technically 2 business days and no guarantee that someone could have taken the Saturday or Sunday, if they would have paid for it, technically they could have. If we do it for Juneteenth, then we got to do it for everyone else. And so that's where the whole gray area lies. How do we, as a commission, help resolve that? What are our thoughts there? Like if we change the policy in a way that's equitable, what does that actually mean? And I don't have that answer, which is why we're having this discussion.
I have a quick question. If someone was able to point me in the direction of the human rights policy that these requests are being compared against, because I'll be honest, when I was reading this information, I'm of course new to this conversation. I read Worcester's policy and I thought it was a free speech policy. And so actually, when I was reading, it wasn't clear to me that the city had taken the governmental speech route. So I was just wondering where that policy is, just so I can see how these requests are being denied or accepted.
What I said was that this commission voted to assist and support the city to take this strict government speech approach. Our current policy is somewhat of, I'll use the word hybrid of that, because in essence, people still have to come to the city for permission to fly the flag, not by proclamation, because it's a mechanical thing that goes through the administrative side of the city. In Boston, it goes to the city, city council, city elected people that are dealing with it as proclamations if it's not on the list. So we aren't there yet here. And what we're talking about being in violation of is the city's human rights ordinance that speaks to, bias, discrimination, et cetera. So for instance, if someone were to ask to put a flag that was biased against X group, that would be one we would likely not allow.
One of the issues I saw as I was reading this all and looking at Boston, I believe Boston's issue was the cross on the flag, right? And so just thinking to myself, oh boy, how many different Christian denominations exist within the city, right? So now all of a sudden, could every group now come up and say, okay, we want this style cross, we want this. And so this is where I see a trickiness of this whole situation. When we talk about cultural, we're looking religious, and then so this is what I think I was a little squirmish about, because I'm like, ooh, yeah, this could become a big headache if people wanted to make it a headache.
I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. What I thought I read from what you gave us, Pat, as you said numerous times, was that if this is a government driven process, not a free speech driven process, that we can reject whatever flags, the city administration can reject whatever flags.
That is correct.
It wants to. Okay.
But we don't have that currently in place in Worcester, is what I'm saying. That's what the HRC previously voted to drive towards, but we don't have that policy in place currently. Ours is sort of a hybrid version of that, because in essence, yes, we are approving flag requests. We don't have the preordained list, but we do have people coming to us regularly with various cultural flags all the time. I mean, they're not just, some are religious oriented, some are military oriented, some are Independence Day of a country oriented. It could organizational orientation. It varies tremendously.
Your point being is that we could make the recommendation that the city move towards the government form.
The commission already did last year.
And so we could just reiterate the recommendation one more time.
We could reiterate it, or we could work on developing something, a policy that we think is fair, equitable, just.
So I think that that's kind of where we're heading. So let's put forward a motion to understand where the recommendation is and why we have not heard back from the city manager's office in terms of that recommendation. So that's my
Sorry, can I ask a
yes,
through
Drew.
the chair? Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I think this is to Pat. Are you the one who's making the yes or no decisions, or who does it go to when the form comes in?
Goes to me.
So you're right now, and you don't. As far as I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If it's governmental speech, then I mean that's outside of free speech. It means that basically the government of the city of Worcester is determining that this is part of their viewpoint technically, and that's why the flag is allowed to be displayed. That's a correct ruling?
I don't know. I don't know if I would use the word viewpoint, but it's not in violation of any policy, is the way we look at it in Worcester currently, of our human rights policy specifically. I wouldn't say that we agree with everything, but it's not my discretion or my personality to say that I agree with everything anyhow. So it's not part of the parameters of the program. It's just, is it violating the human rights ordinance currently in Worcester?
Right. And so that decision right now falls to you.
Correct.
That's I guess my question. So like if there's like a question of a flag that's more concerning or something that you might be worried about, where do you go? Do you go to Kevin, or how is that then discussed?
We would discuss it in the office, collaboratively, come to some type of decision. We work collaboratively on a lot of things like that. I haven't had one come to me like that. The Juneteenth one was sort of, I inherited that from a, prior year. So, of course, I worked on that with Kevin, but, 99.9% of them, I review them and I approve them.
Okay, and one more question quickly, just because, again, like, I'm no longer the newest person here as of a few months ago, which feels so weird. But I am still new enough to most of these conversations. So I'm curious, did the Human Rights Commission decide on this 1-day period?
No, that's a good clarifying point, and that's part of the reason why I'm putting forward the motion. Ultimately, what the Human Rights Commission had recommended was that the city adopt the government. What's the terminology here?
That is correct, that the city adopt a government speech model.
Right.
I think Drew was talking about before that, correct, Drew? Who developed the actual policy as it exists now?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the request to display policy that you sent around, and it says, the city human rights policy will guide the decision making for granting the display. Flags are typically displayed for a 1-day period. So who put this policy together?
I can't answer that tonight. I don't have an answer for you. I could find out.
Okay. I just wonder, because it feels like that's a huge sort of barrier here, or a hurdle that we need to figure out. And if I just didn't know if that was something, because I know that the flag conversation has been ongoing for a while, so I didn't know if this was part of something that this body had decided previously, or if it was a long-standing situation that we are now going to deal with.
Right, and I think and that's why putting forward this motion to understand where the city manager is on the request that we made a year ago when it comes to the flag policy. That's the first, I think, motion that I'd like to put forward. Afterwards, I'd like to put forward a second motion that allows, I'd like for the equity office to come up with a duration approach. What is the proper duration for a flag to be up? I don't think we have the answer to that. And the reason why I'm saying this is because of what we're dealing with both Juneteenth and with Pride, for example. Because as it currently stands, the duration of the flag being up is actually the main problem here, right? Pat has not had a hateful type of flag that's been requested. That's not currently the issue. The issue at hand is the duration of a flag staying up. And so I think I'm going to ask that we task your office to come up with a proposal for what that could look like.
I mean, I guess we could do some research, but I think that that's solidly landed in your sort of realm as the HRC members to develop what you think is right. But I mean, we can certainly do some background research and find out,
I think the background research would be great, because then we can build off of that. I feel like right now, I would just be kind of just going in the dark here and just guessing, and then all of a sudden what we proposed is not appropriate, right?
I know that you mentioned that there was a lot of flags when you started looking at the governmental speech list. I think that we need that list. I do think that we need to be able to see that list and have an idea of what those look like.
That list will be developed by whatever municipality. It will be individualized to whatever municipality it is. It's not there's no standard list. There is not one, right?
Okay.
That's part of the problem, right? Because there's a lot of countries' flags. I mean, honestly, there's an enormous amount of flags for countries, and then cultural organizations, fraternal organizations. I mean, you name it, there's a flag for it. So that's the issue with, where do you step over the threshold of all of these are included, and if they're not over here, anybody else can ask to have their flag flown.
And I think both, I think to your point about the day length, and again, I think we've been lucky in, perhaps not having potentially harmful flags requested. I did watch the video you sent out, and that was a concern of the speakers in that video, is that there are groups, specifically looking for policies that are vague. I think that if we're kind of situated in between one or the other, we're in a vulnerable position, and I think you as an individual, kind of sole decision maker is a vulnerable position to be put in, again, unless we have a standard by which we are evaluating. I think when looking into, I can't find my notes here, but I forget if it was Boston. I think one of the questions was it reflecting city-approved messages and values? And so if we're claiming governmental speech, I think that we're claiming that the flags being raised are actually promoting our values, not just are they in conflict with a policy that exists. I did some further diving into free speech laws in there. It's pretty liberal. There's not much that is unprotected under free speech. So I do think that we need a clear policy. I think one thing, and I guess we will get into whether we will be creating that policy and how that will work in another meeting, but one thing that was mentioned was that this can happen through proclamation of the city manager, but also city council and that sort of thing. So perhaps we can move into a system where there is maybe a small set list, but then opportunity for community members to petition with city council, and that could come with a proposal with multiple days, or things that are within a more flexible system. And again, with this being governmental speech, there's more flexibility to accommodate more than one request in a year, or perhaps something that happens over a week rather one day. But I am really concerned to keep something that's kind of straddling both sides. I think at some point that will be exploited, and that can be very damaging.
So, okay, so going back, so there's two motions on the floor. The first one is for the city manager to give us an update as to where it is, like where in the process is that the human rights recommendation that was made a year ago. And then the second motion is, I'm blanking.
The second motion,
Asking the EODEI develop
Oh, yes.
what the duration of a flag being raised should be.
Yes, the second motion is a work assignment for Pat.
But that's a bad question.
And so the second motion is to ask the equity office to kind of come up with a baseline that we can jump off of when it comes to durations for flags.
Can we get a second for the first motion?
second, but I do want to have discussion more.
Okay.
Okay, so it seems to me that we already spoke that we want the model where it's government-sanctioned speech. And Pat, if I got this right, you haven't turned down anybody yet. So it doesn't seem to be much of an issue. The real issue is the second motion that Guillermo is, right, the duration. Now, it's not just duration. Guillermo, last year you spoke about, and Pat, you seem to have come up with a creative solution to this problem, but the problem you voiced was if the LGBTQIA plus movement would have two separate periods where it would like to raise its flag, and if the city rules do not allow that, Pat, you seem to have come up with a creative solution that it could be two different flags, and that could solve that problem. So far,
I didn't come up with that. That was sort of the mindset of, everyone that was working on the policy
All right.
previously.
All right, anyway, it's a good idea,
Yep.
whoever came up with it. The harder one is the duration, right? And what I think people don't understand, you folks explained it to us, but not everybody was here, and the public may not understand, is that the old practice was the flag stayed up until another group wanted to put their flag up. So the flag would stay up for a very long period of time. So if you're somebody like the Juneteenth folks, and you're seeing what all happened before, and now all of a sudden it's, hey, 1 day, that's it. Unless you're lucky enough to want a Friday, and then you get 2 days. So I think the real problem is the duration problem. That's really the problem. And I personally don't think the 1 day rule makes sense. There has to be some flexibility on the 1 day rule. Now, I don't know if you're going to pay extra for extra days if you're not taking a Friday, or there's going to be that you can have it for free so long as nobody else asks it. And I think that's what your second motion is asking the city to give us. I basically think saying, we don't like your 1 day rule, our city. We don't like that rule. So come up with something else that you'd like because we don't like that rule, and see what else you come up with that could work besides the one-day rule. I think that's where we're at.
Right, and I think the other thing.
I'm going to be completely transparent about this. I like the one-day rule. I like it a lot because it gives me very structured responses to these things, right? And I like the policy because I'm a policy person and the policy's in place and we adhere to it. So I like the protection that the policy gives. I hear what you're saying, I really do. I can't envision a time when I would suggest to a client that I'm representing, and again, I'm not representing the city in my capacity here, but can't imagine a situation where I would say one flag can fly for as long as it can until someone makes a subsequent request later, because that would be all over the place. And also, the other thing to remind you all is, this is a mechanic and logistical thing, right? So I get the request, and then I have to get everybody in facilities on board. The people have to bring their own flag over here to City Hall, hand it off to staff here in City Hall, and then facilities gets the flag and raises it. This is all a scheduling and logistics thing a dance we do.
Right, so we definitely disagree, because I think we absolutely need more flexibility than the one-day rule. And,
Whatever you decide to do is what I'm perfectly understanding of that. But
okay,
I'm just saying to
who
you what
makes this decision?
Makes what decision?
How many days you can have it up for?
Well, the duration is currently the policy.
Policy,
Like, that's
right.
what it is.
I know, so in other words, the city administration makes this, not our commission. Isn't that correct?
I don't know who drafted that policy, Randy. I have no idea.
Yeah, the problem is that the policy has existed for quite some time. It's just as of probably 15, 16 months ago that it's truly been enforced.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we as a commission are kind of being tasked with, like, and the good thing here is, like, we're respectfully disagreeing with Pat. Like, Pat likes it because she's got a policy, she's got guidance, she knows how to follow it. Currently, the policy doesn't accommodate for what happens in our city. And so I think that, we just gave two really good examples, right? Like, of course, the organizers for Juneteenth want the Juneteenth flag flying on Juneteenth, but also they're gonna want it flying
On their weekend celebration.
During their weekend celebration.
Or recognition.
Right. The only way that isn't a problem is maybe in 2 years when Juneteenth falls on a Saturday, the day that the festival happens. And then with Pride, it's the same thing, because Pride used to have a flag raising on August 31st, which was the day before the beginning of the festivities, and the Pride flag would fly for the duration of the 2 weeks. And so clearly we're not doing that anymore. And so what is the alternative? And so I'm grateful that Pat's going to look into it and at least give us something, but I think that we should probably do our own research as well as to what is an equitable policy when it comes to duration, because I don't know the answer to that.
And I would just echo, I like the policy, I like policies, and I think they help at times, but I think there could be a lot of just ugliness that arises, because if we talk about the flag up for 2 weeks, then what if there's a group within the 2 week period that's really like, no, we want it for that, right? And so then I think it just becomes very tricky at times. And so I think we really have a lot of work to do and have to be very thought-filled about this, because I could see individuals then saying, okay, how do we make a problem out of this, right? So if I want to say, just as an example, it's the season of Lent. I want to put a purple flag up with ashes on it, right? Does that become, will individuals use this as a means just to bring about division within the city? And that's what I'm most fearful about.
So when we develop our own idea of what we would like the policy to be, I think what we could use, Pat, is a calendar of what has flown in the last year for us to take a look at, like what days, what flags.
It's on the
flew.
website.
Oh, okay.
All the approved flag raisings are on the public-facing website for cultural flags. The date they're requested, what flag it is. It's
Okay,
part
so
of the
then
information that's collected.
We can use that to educate ourselves
Yeah.
and have a
And-
better discussion about what we think's good policy.
And I think, too, to take this sort of out to like maybe an absurd area, if we were to make it 2 days, and I'm going to use Juneteenth as an example, and a year comes when Juneteenth is on a Tuesday, how is that going to work for Juneteenth to have their celebration and the flag up, even if the policy says 2 days? It doesn't work. Because the flag would have to be up Tuesday and then be put back up for Saturday and Sunday of the following Tuesday, right? That doesn't work.
Right, so that's what we need to figure it out. I'd like to end the discussion, and I'd like to call the vote.
I need a second on the second part of the second motion by Guillermo, in which he'd ask us at EODI to do some research on what the duration of flags being raised are or should be. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Drew. So I'm going to take a roll call on the first motion made by Guillermo, which is what is the status of the previous HRC recommendation to have the City of Worcester implement a government speech flag policy, made by Guillermo, seconded by Randy. A roll call, please. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Aye.
Member Robert Bellata.
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang.
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Aye.
And Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
Thank you all. On the second motion made by Guillermo, which requested that my office develop or determine what a duration of flags being raised should be, seconded by Commissioner Schneblin. A roll call vote, please. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Aye.
Member Robert Bellata.
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang.
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
Thank you. Both motions carry.
Quickly, Pat, you said that the flag list was on the website?
Yes, it shows the flags that are teed up to be raised.
I just see the ones that are coming, and there's like only like 4 or 5, it's like through September. But is there like a full list of the year? Because it looks like if we pass that time, then that list is gone.
You might not have access to the whole year.
Yeah,
So-
I wonder if you could like find the full list for us, because I
mean,
just don't think
I
that
have
it's
access
actually
to-
available.
I have access to the list, but again, it's also sort of odd to look at because the flag requests come in somewhat strangely in that they're not posted to me, chronological. So sometimes I have to go fishing around looking for them on the site that I use to approve them. But I'll check it out, and whatever I can get together for you, I will.
Okay, that'd be helpful, I think, because it does look like there's only 4 or 5 in August, and there's 2, 3 in September, and then after September, it's listed. The next one listed is June 5th, 2026. So even that doesn't show like a listing moving forward for the end of the year. So I do think that
It's
like that
possible
would.
there aren't any. It's possible there aren't any yet.
Wh-
They
which
have
is-
to make the
would be-
request 2 weeks in advance, so frequently
Right.
I get them just at that 2-week juncture in advance of when the flag raising is.
Great. So I just think that like something that we've seen prior to now, from like January to now, would probably be helpful in us determining just sort of the frequency of changes.
Okay. So I'm going to move us on. Next on the agenda is the chair to assign review of WPD policies. So there are 2 policies on the table. The first is a specialized unit, and the second one is the canine unit. Honestly, the goal of the section of this agenda is for me to literally ask for volunteers, and then if I hear none, to assign. So, does anyone have a great urge to review and research one of these 2 before I get the urge to let you know that you've been selected? So the first one is specialized unit. Does anyone have a great urge to do some research around specialized units for WPD?
Could you explain what specialized units are?
Pat, can you explain that for us? It's part of the research, Randy.
I'd have to pull up the policy to really explain it to you. If I were volunteering, I would definitely take the canine one, though. I've seen both of them.
Okay, so I think I know what specialized units are, I think. So that would be the
I
vice
believe the
squad
K-9 unit is a specialized unit, so it's,
outside of the normal specialized unit
correct.
rubric. Okay, so I would think it's like the gang unit, the vice squad, like those kind of specialized units.
I think the Vice Squad has its own policy. This is not that, but other specialized units.
Okay.
All right.
So, is Randy, are you volunteering?
I'm volunteering Jacqueline Yang.
I'm not really sure what specialized units is, and I don't think anyone else is.
So,
I'm going to take a peek in my email while you all argue about this.
all right. Well, does anyone want the K9 unit?
I don't mind taking K-9 unit.
Oh,
and
okay,
If
clerk.
somebody wants to pair up with me, that's fine too, but I'm okay
All
taking
right,
it alone.
I will. Let's see. So this could be fun. Our newest commissioner. Why don't you partner up with our clerk, and you two can get a coffee or something, and do some research around the K9 units for the Worcester Police Department. Does that sound okay?
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
It works
Thank
for me.
goodness you're not a cat person. Good.
Yeah. And then for specialized units, Pat, do you have a? Pat's looking it up. But I think that I really do think that encompasses K9, but it also encompasses, I think, drug and maybe mental health. Like, I think it's an umbrella term. But I might be wrong.
And you want us to do what?
Research it and review the WPD policy around it, and then bring it back to the commission to talk about it.
Or maybe make recommendations.
So this is the non-patrol generalists responding to calls for service with specialized skill sets. Sexual assault unit is a specialized unit. K-9 unit is a specialized unit, etc. So it's the named, I'll call them named units beyond
So
typical
the sexual
patrolling.
assault unit?
Sorry?
I said, so you want me to look into the sexual assault unit?
No, this is the specialized unit policy it covers all of the specialized units.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an umbrella.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did we get an attachment a couple of months ago with the document they were looking for us to review? Okay, I thought I saw something like that. I'll see if I can find
Both of these policies were sent out a couple months ago to everyone, and then nobody wanted to volunteer.
So when we say specialized unit, is that a generic procedures and policies, or the sexual violations unit and the whatever else unit?
This is
have
generic.
special?
This is generic as to the formation, activation, and possibly deactivation of a specialized unit. They focus on certain types of crimes necessitating heightened training and experience.
So it's generic. You're not looking into the policies of any one of those things?
Correct. It's the umbrella policy of the specialized units.
Looks
You
like
gonna take that one?
looks like a
Like
Guillermo
SWAT
thing to
units
me.
and things, yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
say
if
it
you-
looks like a Guillermo thing? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
If
All
you
right.
look at the
I
May
second that
15th
from Randy. I second that. It's a Guillermo thing.
It's a Guillermo.
Okay. All right. Well, if no one wants it, I'd be happy to do some research around it and come and be ready for presenting.
With the vice chair.
Yeah, Randy will get a phone call from me. Okay. All right. So that's settled. So K9 unit, we actually did get volunteers, and then the other one I was voluntold. All right. Moving us along. Last but certainly not least, and Commissioner Ballon, I'm going to let you kind of kick this off if you want to, and if not, I have language that can be used, but essentially it's a recognition of July as Disability Pride Month. I wanted I had Pat reach out to you. I'm not sure if you were able to get to it or not.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Absolutely. Yeah, I have a statement prepared. So July 26, 2024 holds great significance over the 61 million Americans with disabilities. It marks the 34th anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Excuse me, 35th. What am I saying? Apologies, there's a typo. The Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in many areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and many public and private places that are open to the general public. It guarantees equal opportunity for individuals with disabilities in public accommodations, employment, transportation, state and local government services, and telecommunications. This landmark legislation is crucial in legally ensuring that the basic civil rights of people with disabilities are protected and enforced. The ADA, like all other civil rights in America, were not given, they were fought for. The ADA and the independent living movement was the culmination of decades of work by disability rights advocates and allies. Decades of lobbying, organizing, and yes, sometimes protests and demonstrations. Disabled demonstrators in March of 1990 quite literally crawled up the Capitol stairs to demonstrate the lack of access. Thanks to the ADA, many physical barriers have been removed, and individuals with all types of disabilities are experiencing an improved quality of life. Despite these advancements, many disabled individuals still face inequities in transportation, employment, education, healthcare, housing, and public accommodations. These challenges are often exacerbated for disabled people who are also members of other historically marginalized groups, including BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, and immigrant communities. The Human Rights Commission affirms the importance of joining the National Recognition of Disability Pride Month by celebrating the achievement of Worcester's disabled residents, while also committing to overcoming disability identity, celebrating our community, and advocating for a world where accessibility, equity, and dignity are the standard. We encourage city departments, community organizations, and residents to actively uplift disabled voices, confront ableism in all its forms, and work collaboratively towards a Worcester that is truly inclusive. The HRC requests the City Manager's Office review Worcester's municipal policies, programs, and spaces to ensure that they are fully accessible, equitable, and inclusive of disabled people and aligned with the obligations of the ADA. Disability Pride Month, it's a month that we all celebrate, and really thankful to be part of the Human Rights Commission and have the opportunity to highlight Disability Pride Month. I will close with a great quote from the wonderful Judy Heumann. Quote, "If you don't demand what you believe in for yourself, you're never going to get it." So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So that is a motion on the floor for the commission to adopt the resolution and to send the resolution over to the city manager's office.
Rob, could I just ask you to email me that language tomorrow?
Yes, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
Great. And
So we have a motion by
I'm going to
Rob.
second that, Pat.
You're going to second it?
Yeah.
I'd like to take a roll call for approval of that motion. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.,
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman,
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell,
Aye.
Member Robert Bellotta,
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang,
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin,
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskas,
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners. As a reminder, the resolutions that we put forward are not just lip service. They are truly core values that we carry as a commission and encourage the city manager and his administration and all departments under them to take as well. So The resolutions are important, in my opinion. So if you ever have anything that you want to bring forward for a month that we have a meeting, please don't hesitate to bring those forward. Pat and I can help you craft the language. There could always be a request in there and stuff. So again, don't hesitate to do that. Any comments or questions from commissioners before we wrap?
Through the chair, I'd just like to say I'd never received an agenda for this meeting.
Pat, can you just look at your email list when you get the chance?
Jackie, I will check my email, and I apologize if I missed you. I'll be more cautious next time if I missed you, but let me look into that in my email.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay. As a reminder to folks, the next meeting is scheduled for August 25th at 6 p.m. We will be here yet again or online. I wish you all a lovely month. I look forward to our continued conversations. And as always, you have my email. Please don't hesitate to reach out should you have any questions. And with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
I can second that.
Yeah, that was Carrie.
So we have a motion to adjourn at 8:20 p.m. made by the chair, seconded by Commissioner Witherell. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Aye.
Member Robert Bellata.
Aye.
Member Jacqueline Yang.
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
The motion carries. We are adjourned.